All right. Welcome, everyone, to Dion's Daily Dose. Tonight, we are actually going to talk about the Supreme Court arguments that are going on in the homeless encampment, well, the homeless prosecution case, I should call it. Do you want to give a quick overview of what the case is about?
All right. The case is about a town in Oregon that wants to start finding homeless. And the Supreme Court is going to find out if it was going to be unconstitutional. I believe the lower courts have ruled it was unconstitutional. So the city went to the Supreme Court and hoping that they overturn the lower courts.
Right. They want to, they want to criminalize homelessness, essentially.
And then
they're under the umbrella of calling it a ban on camping in the city.
And one thing that you'll hear a lot about in this case is Robinson.
Okay.
And that is a 6-2 decision that was rendered in 1962. And the Supreme Court held that laws imprisoning persons affiliated with the illness of narcotic addiction inflicted cruel and unusual punishment. And that violated the Eighth Amendment, they said.
That is very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What year was that?
1962.
62. So that was a Supreme Court decision? So SCOTUS ruled that imprisoning someone simply for the crime of being an addict is unconstitutional and constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. Interesting.
But not having possession, I think that's where that comes in.
Right. If they just are an addict and don't have it on them or whatever. So one of the things we've heard from various people is that addiction is a contributing factor of homelessness.
We saw that during the debate.
Right. It's not the only factor, but it definitely plays a part.
It plays a part.
Absolutely.
But not everybody that's homeless is addicted to something.
Exactly. Okay. So that's what's going on. The case itself, again, the city is arguing that they should be allowed to impose fines or criminal penalties. Specifically, they're talking about fines. But if you don't pay the fine, it's a whole thing. But they want to be able to impose fines on people who are violating what they call anti-camping laws. So essentially, they want to be able to find the homeless. Now, there are those, and we won't get into right or wrong or any of that. That's the point. The Supreme Court is hearing it so they can make a determination. That's what the Supreme Court's for. So, but I do think some of the arguments are interesting. I have not had the opportunity to review them yet, but Shawn came prepared with timestamps and everything. So we're going to do the best we can to make sure that we give you guys a full and complete summary, I think, of the most interesting aspects, right?
Yep.
Of the arguments. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go. So currently, the first person we're going to have talk is Sonia Sotomayor.
Yep. So
I'm going to start the video, and then I'm going to pop up. You'll see currently speaking at the bottom of the screen so that you can tell who's talking right now. Now, do they talk during the entire portion that you have timestamped?
Yes.
Or does it just start with them? No, it's the whole timestamp is them speaking.
No, it might be like in the middle of an argument. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, like is there going to be someone else that's like chiming in during this period?
You will hear.
So the first person that talks is usually the justice, right? And then there may be
most of the time, yes.
Yeah. So when you see currently speaking, it may be the attorney or someone else, but the justice itself that's talking, that's the one who's talking, or at least at the beginning. Like I said, I haven't listened to every single second of it so that I can post exactly who's talking when, because I don't even know all the people, all the attorneys for the other side and all that stuff. So
yeah, I don't either.
I don't either. So,
I just know the justices.
Yeah, we know the justices. You're lucky you're getting this much. No, I'm just kidding. Here we go.
Are not asking us to overturn Robinson, correct?
We think Robinson was wrongly decided and should not be extended, but we don't think that the court needs to overrule it here because
assuming it's there, it prohibits you criminalizing homelessness, right? So what you do is say only homeless people who sleep outdoors
Say goodbye to old costly cable TV once and for all.
Yeah, it's got
This revolutionary invention gives you access.
There you
You
go.
will be arrested. That's the testimony of your chief of police, two or three officers, which is if you read the crime, it's only stopping you from sleeping in public for the purpose of maintaining a temporary place to live. And the police officers testified that means that if a stargazer wants to take a blanket or a sleeping bag out at night to watch the stars and falls asleep, you don't arrest them. You don't arrest babies who have blankets over them. You don't arrest
interesting.
people who are sleeping on the beach, as I tend to do if I've been there a while.
Okay.
You only arrest people who don't have a second home. Is that correct?
Well,
Who don't have a home.
so no, these laws are generally applicable. They apply to
Yeah,
everyone.
that's what you want to say.
Oh,
Give me one example, because your
Yeah.
police officers couldn't.
okay. I'm going to pause it here real quick. You know, that's actually a really, really good question. Is it targeted enforcement or is this blanket? Now they're claiming, oh no, it's a blanket policy. Sotomayor called that out and was like, that's what you want us to think.
Uh-huh.
Wow, she got spunk.
Yeah, she does.
Okay. All right, here we go. Continuing.
And they explicitly said, if someone has a home, and is out there and happens to fall asleep, they won't be arrested. Fall asleep with something on them.
Well, Joint Appendix, page 98 is one example of a citation issued to a person with a home address. But more importantly, I think what we're getting at here is that these laws regulate conduct of everyone. There's nothing in the law that criminalizes homelessness. I really
That's what you say, but if I look at the record and see differently,
Oh.
it's a different argument, isn't it?
Grants Pass policy actually very clearly says that being homeless is not a crime, and that's in.
I know that's what you say, but if you're enforcing it only against the homeless, I will suggest that you look. There's one brief.
I'm going to pause it there real quick.
Okay.
That's a great argument by the judge, the justice, saying you're claiming that it's not targeted on the homeless, but your record says otherwise.
That's the only people that you're finding.
Yeah. So, interesting. And it's not fair to people who go to the beach and put a blanket on them and fall asleep, like Justice Sotomayor said, she even does it, right? So this is interesting. I got to give it to you, man. It's a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. Not that I thought it would be boring, but I didn't think it would have the nuance to it that this does. I appreciate this. All right.
Let me see if I can find it. That talks about this. At any rate, I'll find it later and just mention it.
Okay.
The second thing I want to ask you is, you seem to start by saying that the Eighth Amendment is limited to forms of punishment and not to the nature of punishment, the proportion.
Oh, okay. Now that is an interesting argument by the attorney, saying that cruel and unusual punishment is limited. Well, I should say the protection from cruel and unusual punishment is limited to actual jail, right? But it's not.
No,
it's not. Okay.
Proportionality issue. There also is a number of. There also is a number of amicus brief that lays out for us that from the Magna Carta through the founding, through state laws, through Weems, which was in 1910, through Trop later in the century, that throughout all of that, both the English, American colonies, this court has had some form of proportionality in their Eighth Amendment jurisprudence. You're asking us to ignore all of that history.
Oh.
No, we're not, Justice Sotomayor. What we are saying is that this case doesn't implicate proportionality. We're not asking the court to take a position on whether it's a proper inquiry under the Eighth Amendment. For
Oh,
example,
yes, you are, because you're saying that the only thing that's prohibited by the Eighth Amendment is the form of punishment.
Yeah, that's exactly what, like, Sotomayor's on it, man. I haven't heard, like, I've read a couple of her opinions that I didn't necessarily agree with. Some I did, but she's kind of sharp.
Oh yeah, she usually is.
Okay. All right. But she makes a great point. You're saying that this targeted enforcement or the fines or criminality or whatever is the protection of our Constitution only extends to being jailed. No, it doesn't.
No, excessive fines too.
Yeah, okay.
But in those cases, and in our history, we have said that certain punishments, Trump, for example, can't be done.
that's right. And the court has always looked at if a particular punishment is considered too extreme or categorically so, as in the death penalty in some cases, the court looks at whether a lesser punishment would be acceptable. Again, it's looking at punishment. And that's where the inquiry focuses here. Only what the respondents are asking this court to do is to extend Robinson beyond.
Do you have hotels that are valued at $200, $250?
Okay, yeah, it's going on beyond the thing, and I think it doesn't matter.
No,
but that is a really good argument. That is a really good argument by the justice to say, well, this is actually flying in the face of our Eighth Amendment, because cruel and unusual punishment can be fines as well, especially for the poor, dude.
Yeah.
This is what, like, these people who come up with these fines, I genuinely don't know, like, where they get the numbers from, because some of these fines are insanely high for people who are broke.
yeah. How are they supposed to pay for it?
Yeah, especially like homeless. If they had $500 to pay a fine with, they'd have a house. Like, dude. All right. So I'm gonna get us to the next section.
And this will be
There'll be another ad.
Jackson.
Introducing AI Reviews by Spellbook.
Allow.
Okay. So this is Justice Brown. Or sorry, Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson.
Justice Jackson. And we, just so you know, guys, I'm sorry, the first clip was at the 4-minute 18 mark to the 8-minute 38-second mark, if you wanted to go and watch for yourself. Jackson, 1715, and we're going to play to 1930. So here we go.
Can I give you a hypothetical? Can I give you a hypothetical? Okay, so suppose the relevant ordinance prohibited eating on public property rather than sleeping or camping. We're talking about eating. And the city, for very, rational reasons, has determined that when people eat outdoors, it creates problems with trash and rodents and the like. And so it bans eating in public places, and it punishes violators. Now, just as here, that seems generally fine because most people have restaurants that they can go to. Most people have houses that they can eat in. But some people don't have that option. They have to eat in public because they're unhoused and they can't afford to go to a restaurant. So is your argument same result? No Eighth Amendment problem, no problem with the city banning eating in public, even though that's a public function, even though that's a human necessity that everyone engages in, and really what's happening is you're only punishing certain people who can't afford to do it privately.
I'll pause it right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's called targeted enforcement. Like, if you, like she said, if you ban eating in public, you and I don't have to eat in public.
No.
We can go to Burger King. We can go to McDonald's. We can go to a much better place. We can go, and we have our home that we can eat in, or our vehicle, or whatever. The unhoused.
That's a progressive term that they're using
instead of correct term for homeless. Gotcha. Well, I'm going to say homeless because they are. And I got nothing against the homeless, dude. Like, I'm just going to say it. Is it annoying when they're constantly panhandling while I'm trying to get somewhere? Sure. But I don't hate them for it.
No.
I don't want them prosecuted because they're broke. Like, anyway. Okay. Yeah, I'm with her so far. All right. So we got like another minute 20.
Well, it sounds like I take for a moment that you're not saying that the law draws lines on any sort of irrational basis or any equal protection.
No, the city has
issue.
a perfectly rational basis. When people eat in public, there's trash, there are rodents, there are problems. So the city says what we're going to do is we're going to say no eating in public. What I'm concerned about from your argument is the suggestion, you call it conduct. I appreciate that. But what we have happening in operation is that people who are able to afford doing this thing that's a basic human need privately are okay. They're not punished for it. But people who don't have any other option or opportunity except for to do it in public are the ones who are being targeted by this statute.
So two responses. First, I think the Eighth Amendment is the wrong way to look at it. Someone might have a due process challenge to a law like that if there is a deeply entrenched liberty
punishment
interest.
is happening. In my hypothetical, people are going to jail because they're eating in public. So why is the Eighth Amendment not implicated?
In that case, you would have a defense under Oregon law, for example, a necessity defense. And I want to get to that on the...
Okay. I mean, I'll be honest, man. I have not been a big fan of Jackson since her appointment.
No.
I like heard how she's ruled on things. I not a fan. In this, she's correct. Like, how can you claim that this doesn't fall under the Eighth Amendment when exorbitant fines that people obviously cannot pay? They're obviously cruel and unusual punishment for some sort of infraction. Like, I'm actually, God, I can't believe I'm agreeing with Ketanji Brown Jackson, but
it was bound to happen.
Oh yeah, here's the thing. She made some really good points on that. And okay, so the next one
is Roberts,
and it is from the 27-minute 26-second mark to the 30-minute 31-second mark. So we're gonna bring it up. I can't do anything about the ads. They're gonna pop up. It is what it is. So here we go.
That
Here's what they don't want homeowners in America to know.
So, why doesn't every home in the
law, well, if your question is asking, would it be permissible to punish being a bank robber, I think that would have vagueness problems, probably.
Okay.
Well, it would be someone who robbed a bank. That doesn't sound vague.
Well, I don't think that it is a status in the sense of Robinson, which, again, I want to just focus on what we think Robinson stands for, and it's only its narrow holding about addiction. And it was the status of being an addict without any mens rea. So a law like that, without any actus reus, a law like that is problematic without an...
I'm going to pause it there for a second. They use some legal terms that I'm not familiar with. Do you know what that meant? Actus reus?
No, I don't know
what she said. Hold on.
I thought she was talking about Robinson.
But yeah, she was.
It was the status of being an addict without any mens rea. So a law like that, without any actus reus.
Actus reus.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what that means. Let's find out.
But I know they were referring to the Robinson. Maybe that just means president.
Actus reus, action or conduct, which is a constituent element of a crime, as opposed to the mental state of the accused. There's a quote: failure to prevent death may be the actus reus of manslaughter. So an action as opposed to intent.
Okay,
I get it now.
All like that is problematic without an actus reus. I think it would probably have vagueness problems, due process problems. However, the Eighth Amendment, this entire exercise under Robinson, is the only time this court has ever evaluated the substantive criminal law, and it raises all of these line drawing problems. And the fact that I'm not here to defend Robinson as a matter of first principles, we don't agree with it. We think it was wrongly decided. We're just saying that it is so far removed, that our laws are so far removed.
Whoa. hold on. So I just want to make sure this is the attorney for the city.
Yep.
Saying, and what's really funny to me is they're going in front of the Supreme Court saying, you screwed up in the past. We wholeheartedly disagree with the way this was decided, but find in our favor this time. Bruh, there's some gall there.
From what was at issue in Robinson, that it just isn't implicated here.
So if someone is homeless for a week and then finds available shelter, is that person homeless when he's in the shelter?
Under federal law, the HUD regulations, he is actually considered homeless. That shows the fluidity and the different ways.
Putting the HUD regulations to one side, can someone who is sleeping in a shelter be considered homeless?
Okay, I'll pause it there. What's that?
Then how do you find them if they're in a homeless shelter?
Right. And how do you, like, they may have the legal status of being homeless or unhoused or whatever progressive term they want to use, but they have shelter. They're not shelterless. They're in a shelter. They're protected from the elements. Like, I don't know. Okay. But continuing.
Some would say yes, that someone.
What would you say?
I would say that at that point he is sheltered and homeless. I think that is.
Well, let me make it easier. What if he buys a home or finds a home or is given a home? Is he homeless at that point?
He is not. So for what's at issue in this case.
So you think the status of homelessness can change from one time to another?
Yes, I do. I think it's very fluid.
Is that consistent with the definition of status in Robinson?
No. So Robinson treated addiction as a disease and as something that, and many believe that addiction is something that someone has with them forever, and it's a struggle. So that is a very different situation. And here, if someone has shelter, let's say they were offered shelter yesterday and they refused it, and then today, when someone comes around and tells them that they're not permitted to camp, are they involuntarily there if they refused shelter yesterday? That's the question the Eighth Amendment does not answer. This is very complex. What if there is a bed available in the Gospel Rescue Mission, but like Ms. Johnson, a person doesn't wish to leave their pet? Her Rottweiler's not permitted there. So that is a difficult question for a person and a difficult policy question. But the person's status, yes.
Okay. What's your take
on what you just said? It's such a complicated issue that I don't think finding people is the answer, though. Like to force somebody.
Right. But okay, I guess looking at it from another angle, okay? The attorney for the city is arguing, it sounds to me kind of unsuccessfully, but arguing to Roberts, well, to the court, that since housing status is a temporary, that what the court case that they keep referring to, Robinson shouldn't be applicable here. But like addiction also, like she's claiming that some believe that, addiction is a lifelong struggle. Sure. But the active effects of addiction are not. Like, for example, contributing to homelessness. Being homeless and an addict, you can be an addict and not homeless.
That's true, yeah.
So you can also be homeless and not an addict.
Uh-huh.
So I think, let's see here. Okay, so I got that. Let's go back. All right. The next one is
Kagan,
yes. And this is Alana Kagan. And this is from 36 minutes, 26 seconds.
The 39.
To 39:12.
Tell me.
There's the ad.
Fred Meyer said he wanted to leave the world a better place than he entered it, and so we live that.
I personally, I'm just letting you know, I refuse to pay YouTube for no ads. If they were a free speech company, I would have no problem paying for no ads, but I refuse to give them money. I'm just not going to. So there you go. Here we go.
Would work.
Yes, so there, under Oregon law, if a person says that it's effectively the lesser of two evils, if they say I had no alternative to no legal alternative other than what I did here that broke the law, then I had no choice. And I therefore had to break the law, and it was in some sense involuntary, to use a term that many have been discussing. So there, it would be very narrow.
This might actually be Barrett.
Defense.
What's that?
I think I made a mistake. I think this is Barrett.
Is it?
Yeah, I think I made a mistake.
Oh, okay. That's all right. So
I think this is Barrett.
let's fix this. I'll take care of this.
It's hard to tell who's who on this one.
Let's see here. Where did I think I closed it? Yeah. What is it? Amy
Coney Barrett.
Coney.
Yeah.
Barre.
GT.
And she's an associate justice, right?
Yep.
All right, we're gonna swap that out because you know more than I do, but they
Yeah,
all
I
sound
think-
the same to me. So.
I think that was Coney Barrett.
Okay, so we're gonna swap that out. There you go. Continuing.
And so it would be in that moment.
So suppose that there is a person who is homeless and there are no shelter beds available.
Is this
and
Kagan?
the person
That's
has
Kagan.
no place to go, and the person, of course, has to sleep.
Sorry.
And the person, it's cold outside. The person has a blanket, so that's the
Yeah,
minimum
that's
conduct
Kagan.
that the law prohibits. So the person sleeps outside with a blanket,
Okay.
and the police officer comes, but the person says, "Well, I had no place else to go." Would the city continue to push for some kind of penalty?
Well,
That's a really good question.
Mhm.
That's an excellent question. So they don't have a choice. Would you continue to push for a penalty?
there, if a person received a citation, so if they did, then they would have a defense of necessity. It's asserted as a defense. So what the other side is
Well,
trying,
it's asserted as a defense.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're not willing to say,
Mhm.
no, we're going to tell all our police officers that they shouldn't give a citation in that circumstance. We're going to give a citation and then we'll see how the courts deal with it, is all you're going to tell me.
officers always have discretion, and we know that they exercise it, and it's
Well, the
hard to
question is not
know.
an individual officer's
Yeah.
discretion. Individual officers are in a tough situation.
Yes,
here.
they are.
The
Uh-huh.
question is, what is the city going to tell individual officers? So what is the city going to tell individual officers about a case of the kind that I said? Are you going to tell individual officers, issue the citation and we'll see if the person knows enough to make a necessity defense, and we'll see?
That's a fair point, because I'm going to tell you, like, most of America we don't know our rights.
No.
Most of us don't understand, not the basics of it, but all the, like, the Supreme Court cases that have been found and decided about, like you said, what is it? Robinson?
Yeah, Robinson versus California in
Right.
1962. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't even aware of that one.
Before this case, I never heard of it. And I kept hearing them reference Robinson, and I just looked it up.
Yeah. See?
see what the court does about that? Or are you going to say, there are some things that just ought not to be the subject of civil or criminal infractions?
So the city, in its policy, at a joint appendix, page 158, for example, talks about what officers are supposed to do. They're supposed to put people in touch with services first, to contact if there's available help for them. These laws are absolutely a tool for getting people the services that they need. Many people
Well, you're
need
not
that
giving me
intervention.
a real answer
Yes.
to the question of, is the city telling officers that they should give citations
No.
in that circumstance?
No, it is, if some
And then they continue more double speak lawyer talk.
Yep.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's how lawyers are. But fortunately, it sounds to me, at least so far, like these justices are looking past all that crap. They're well aware of the legal the legal tricks used to kind of dodge a question. I am. I was like, I'm crying. All right.
All right, Kavanaugh.
Yeah. So then we got Kavanaugh. Let me get my link up, and again, gonna be an ad. Nothing I can do about it. Okay, and then we go to this. And then we go. Okay, so this is.
Amazing helps Anthony through night classes. Amazing starts at CSL Plasma. Donate plasma today and
There you go.
This one's a longer one than normal, so. All right, here we go.
Policy question. I think everyone would agree with that.
Okay, so just to pause for a second, this is 40 minutes, 49 seconds to 45:15, and this is Brett Kavanaugh speaking.
How does this law help deal with the complicated policy issues?
One of the most difficult challenges is getting people the help that they need. And laws like this allow cities to intervene, and they are an important tool.
Hold on. So having a law that fines people hundreds of dollars for being homeless is a way to get them the services that they need?
I guess so.
I cannot follow the logic train on that. I just can't. But let's continue.
Helping incentivize people to accept shelter. So Ms. Johnson, for example, has said in her deposition, it's in the joint appendix, that she does not wish to stay at the Gospel Rescue Mission. One of the reasons is because of her dog. She also had other reasons. She doesn't like being around people and so forth. People have all sorts of circumstances. It's very complex, and the individual
How does it help
decisions.
if they're not? How does it help the rule here, the law here? How does it help if there are not enough beds or
Exactly.
the number of homeless people in the jurisdiction?
So for Ms. Johnson, she sometimes stays with a friend. So
How
there are
about
other.
more generally, though?
Yes.
I guess if there's a mismatch between the number of beds available in shelters, even including Gospel Rescue, and the number of homeless people, there are going to be a certain number of people who there's nowhere to go.
That is a difficult policy question. And
how does this law
Yes.
help with that?
So it encourages people to accept alternatives when they come up so that fewer people end up camping. It also, there is harm in simply camping. Whatever materials people are using when they are living in public spaces without plumbing and infrastructure, there's harm to the whole city and to the whole community as well as to them. We know that encampments and these conditions also breed crime and very dangerous conditions. So the city has an interest in protecting everyone,
Do you
including.
think the constitutional rule should be different when the number of beds available in the jurisdiction exceeds the number of homeless people versus?
Nice. Yeah.
That was an excellent question.
Yep.
So should the Constitution just be different when there are enough beds? That's really what he's saying.
The number of homeless people exceeds the number of beds available in shelters.
No, that's what we've seen in the Ninth Circuit. We've seen that is unworkable. There is no way to count what beds are available and who is perhaps willing to take one and who would consider it adequate. Then the question becomes, are those beds adequate? So here, Gospel Rescue Mission.
That's a separate issue, I agree.
It is.
And it can be a challenging issue, I suppose. I know as well. Let me ask one last question, which is, how does the necessity defense differ from the constitutional rule? You touched on this, but I just want to get a succinct answer to that. The state law necessity defense differ from the constitutional rule.
You would weigh the harm from the individual's conduct in violating the law. So if someone were camping near a school or near or doing something or engaged in some behavior that was particularly harmful, and they had another place where they could camp, that would be maybe a factor that you would raise in the necessity situation. It's narrower. So in a case of the Oregon cases include people who are growing marijuana for medical reasons but without a license, and so the necessity defense was not accepted in that case because they could have obtained a license. So if a person had a friend to go to, had a bed available at the Gospel Rescue Mission, they would be expected to take it under the necessity defense. I think that's how it would play out.
I actually have one last question. When you get out of jail, if you end up, what's going to happen then? You still don't have a bed available. So how's this help?
So I do want to make a point about that, about the criminal aspect. The trespass law here is only triggered after several civil citations.
Right. No,
and
if you run through that cycle and you end up in jail for 30 days, then you get out. I mean, you're not going to be any better off than you were before in finding a bed if there aren't, going to my earlier question, if there aren't beds available in the jurisdiction, unless you're removed from the jurisdiction or you decide to leave somehow.
No, there are services available, and the jurisdiction can put you in touch with services and programs to help you in those circumstances. And for many people, that is a point where they're able to get into treatment. So that intervention actually saves lives.
Thank you.
Okay. So what this attorney for the city is claiming, if I hear her correctly, is that basically we want to force people to use the services that we want them to use. And if they don't, then we're going to issue them big fines. And when they can't afford those fines, we're going to continue to cite them. And then we're going to throw them in jail. And then once they get out of jail, as Justice Kavanaugh asked, what happens then? It's the same situation. And they're like, well, then they are forced to use the services to avoid getting. This is ridiculous. It's a stupid argument. I get the city's desire to clean up the homeless population. I get it. Like, I don't want homeless encampments around the corner from me. I understand. But if you don't have enough beds, like, imagine all the money they're paying this attorney to argue this all the way up to the Supreme Court. All of that money could have been used, in my opinion, to build another homeless shelter.
Very true.
2 or 3 or however many. You go out on the edge of town in the country, buy some land, construct a fairly inexpensive dwelling. You don't need to be downtown. Like, provide transportation. That's cheaper than having police officers constantly enforcing. Anyway, like,
you're right.
We're on the same page on this. And, okay, so the last one is
Robert's.
right around 4 minutes.
104.
Yeah, it's the 1 hour, 4 minute, 32 second mark to the 1 hour, 8 minute, 20 second mark. And it is once again Chief Justice John Roberts. And we are going to get this loaded up for you. Is there anything you think we're missing as far as the arguments here?
No. But I'll tell you, we can, after his comments, I'll say more.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Grants.
You have never.
Gotcha. I muted it that time.
Oh, you could skip it.
All right, here we go.
Pass. 10 minutes away, has just completed building a homeless shelter that has many vacant beds. Does that change the analysis here?
Okay, he's talking about, I think a couple of seconds past, he's talking about Grants Pass, which is the city that brought this original lawsuit, or, whatever. A town very close built additional beds. Here we go.
We talked about the town wanting to ship people out of the town. Would it be would there still be a right to sleep contrary to the ordinances in Grants Pass because you don't want to be taken 10 minutes away where there's a homeless shelter?
I think that goes to the question, I think, under the analysis of whether the beds are available. And I think if they're right across the town line, it would be appropriate to take into account that there's a homeless shelter there, even though it's not one in the city of Grants Pass. But often in a situation, the two towns might cooperate to have one homeless shelter.
They might, but often mixed towns don't always cooperate. So what if it's 30 miles away? Is it Is the shelter available in that case for your purposes, or are you going to tell me it just depends on all the circumstances?
Well, I think it depends
so
on
municipalities won't have that much.
I think it depends on the accessibility. I mean, one of the fundamental points here.
The accessibility is that when an officer comes up in Grants Pass and finds a homeless person and says it violates our ordinance, but I will give you a ride down the road, 30 miles, whatever it is, because there's a new homeless shelter there. And the person says, no, I don't want to do that. Can that person be given a citation?
That's a good question.
I think probably not, but let me, if I could explain why. I mean, obviously there are questions at the margin here, but I think one of the principal features here that shouldn't be overlooked is the city is seeking to banish or expel its own residents, its own citizens, people whose children can go to school in that location, who may pay taxes in that location. So if the 30-mile away shelter requires the person to leave his community and to live in another place, that implicates that aspect.
I mean, how
of the
far does
problem
that
here.
go? Let's say there are 5 cities all around Grants Pass, and they all have homeless shelters, and yet the person wants to stay. You know, I've been a Grants Pass resident for a long time. I don't want to go to one of those shelters. Can that person be given a citation?
I think because of the concern I've mentioned, I think that would be a serious problem because
you would say there would be a problem to give them a citation.
Yes, I think so, because you would be requiring, or the city's ordinance requires them to leave the city of Grants Pass. If the homeless shelter is right over the line, they can still be part of the community of Grants Pass.
No, but it's in another city. You keep fighting.
Right. No, and that's why I think it's different. I'm not prepared to say it, that absolutely not, but I do think it's different because.
Okay, no. It's not different. Like, we're going to continue listening to it, but they're literally being removed from the city and they say, no, I don't want to leave. Of course they can be given a citation. That's exactly what she was just arguing, that they can be forced to take these services. And if they don't want these services, then they can be cited. So, yeah, but we'll let them finish and then we'll discuss.
The city is implementing its policy of banishing people, its own residents.
Banishment is a strange word when you're talking about something 10 minutes away.
Again, the question is whether you could still realistically be part of the community where you grew up. The figures show it. In fact, JA 114, 115 here shows that most of the homeless people in Grants Pass are from Grants Pass.
Council, everyone's mentioned, not everybody, many people have mentioned this is a serious policy problem. And it's a policy problem because the solution, of course, is to build shelter, to provide shelter for those who are otherwise harmless. But municipalities have competing priorities. I mean, what if there are lead pipes in the water? Do you build the homeless shelter or do you take care of the lead pipes? What is isn't enough fire protection? Which one do you prioritize? Why would you think that these 9 people are the best people to judge and weigh those policy judgments?
Exactly. That's why
That's an excellent point. Go ahead.
Okay. I made that point because was the clip over?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to play that clip because I think that's how the conservatives are going to rule, is that they're going to say that it's up to every area or county or town to decide their policy on what to do with the homeless.
Okay.
So the question was, I don't know if I agree with that though, because we shouldn't be giving them excessive fines either.
Right. I rarely find myself in agreement with the liberal justices, but in this point, in my opinion, they're asking the right questions. And it really does come down to targeted enforcement, because while they can say that their goal isn't to find the homeless, that's what this is about. That's exactly what it's about. If it wasn't, then they would just let it go and say, okay, we tried, this isn't going to work. But they argued this all the way to the United States Supreme Court for a reason. And that reason, in my opinion, is that they want to be able to discourage homelessness.
Yeah.
In the strongest possible way. Well, how do you discourage homelessness in the strongest possible way? You make it too expensive to be homeless. And if you can't afford it, then you go to jail. If these people wanted to end up in jail, they'd just go commit a crime and then go to jail.
Yeah.
Because at least then they get 3 hots and a cot. And a lot of homeless do that. Like, don't be fooled. I know there are homeless who, you know what, it's gonna suck tonight. I'm just gonna go break a couple of minor laws, maybe smash a plate window from somewhere, and I'll get a warm bed and some food tonight. Happens all the time. If they were willing to spend the night in jail, they could find a way to do so.
Yeah.
So jail is not a deterrent
No.
for the homeless. It's just not. In some instances, like I said, they choose to go to jail rather than alternatives. And the case specifically, one of the individuals says she doesn't want to go to the shelter because this particular shelter doesn't allow pets. She has an animal. So what they're saying to me is she should just leave her animal on the side of the road and go to this shelter because we want her to.
Because we think we know better than she does.
Exactly. We know what's best for her. She doesn't. We do. And it goes right back to actually Robert's point that was like, you think that a group of people can decide better policies than the policymakers, basically. Because those people need, like he said, they need to determine what's a better use of funds, of town funds. Is it to build another homeless shelter, or is it to improve bus stops, or extend firefighting protection? There's tons of other things that communities want to spend their dollars on instead of dealing with an out of control homeless problem. And it is out of control. Let's be realistic here. It's not the only contributing factor, but one of the contributing factors is the skyrocketing housing rates, dude.
That is, yeah.
They are astronomical. And I don't know about you, but here in Michigan City over the last couple of years, most of the places around here, the house next door sold for close to $100,000.
Wow.
Yeah. The house across the street that is currently on the market is listed for like $120,000. Now, I want to be very clear. I do not live in a high-end neighborhood. I live in a small little suburban HUD. I live in a HUD neighborhood. It was built by HUD in the 70s. It's got metal studs instead of wooden studs, and not solid metal, but the point is, these are cheaply built houses. They're good houses. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my house, but they're not $100,000 homes, dude. This is not a $100,000 neighborhood. I want to be very, very clear on that. So we've seen home prices skyrocket.
Just like everything else.
Just like everything else. And rent, I got a friend of mine that is paying over double what he was paying just a couple of years ago. So
yeah, it's hurting everybody.
It's hurting everybody.
Food.
So yeah, food cost. Yeah. Yeah. Talk about housing costs. Let's talk about food and fuel and everything else. The economy sucks. We know
it does.
So this is going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. I'm not sure yet how they're going to land, but I think you're probably correct. I think the conservative appointed justices are going to determine that it's up to every city and municipality to basically create their own laws.
I predict the one person to watch on this case, though, is Clarence Thomas, because I could see him going either way on this one, because his background, he knows what it's like to be poor.
That's true. Yeah, he grew up very poor, didn't he?
And he used to be pretty progressive back in the day.
True.
So,
yeah, he got basically,
but that doesn't mean anything for today. But I'm just saying, his being poor in the past might.
Mm-hmm. No, it definitely. I will say this: you do not know what being homeless is like. You can make guesses, but you do not truly know what being homeless is like until you're homeless, until you're sitting there going, okay, what do I do? Like, where do I stay tonight? And what am I going to eat? And if I'm really nice to the Domino's guy, will he give me a free pizza? Like, these are all legitimate questions that people ask themselves. You know, like I said, for a period in my late teens, I was homeless. Like, I had no idea where I was going to sleep, what I was going to eat. I, foraged the dumpster behind the local Domino's because I knew they threw away whole pizzas at the end of the night. Like, because I, worked there for a short period, and it is what it is, man. I know. And nowadays, everything's even more expensive.
Yeah.
So even if you can panhandle a few bucks, it doesn't go anywhere.
Uh-huh.
You can get a honey bun, like, at best. Maybe you get a McChicken, from McDonald's, because that's the only thing under $5 anymore. It's insane.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, it's nuts. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting case to watch. Yeah, anything else you want to add?
Nope.
I think that was a good breakdown. Again, if you guys want to watch it, look it up. The name of this particular one is Supreme Court Weighs Bans Targeting Homeless Encampments, and it's on CBS News is the particular one that we have.
There's a few of them.
What's that?
There's a few of them you can choose from.
Yeah, there's a few, but this is the particular one that
we're
using. It's not because I like CBS. It's just the one that I had. The entire thing is 2 hours, 26 minutes, and 35 seconds. So you know that you have the right one. And we'll be back with you soon with some more interesting little tidbits and facts. As a matter of fact, we want to do another Supreme Court one soon,
yes.
Right? Yeah. What's the next one?
The Trump immunity.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you, there are some very concerning questions and statements coming out of that trial.
And I'm going to watch it and I'll break it down like I did this one.
Yeah, which, listen, man, I personally, whether viewers do or not, I greatly appreciate the time that you spent going through this, giving me the timestamps, time codes, and all that. So that's it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you again very, very soon. As always, God bless you, God bless Indiana, and God bless